baby also that shit.
I regret nothing.
When people talk about the effect that media has on our minds, many people like myself argue that after a crummy day, a video game at the right place at the right time can really be quite therapeutic. Some people like a good round of Madden, a little exploration in a fantasy world, and so forth. But for many, Grand Theft Auto has been just what the doctor ordered. When your check engine light comes on, you have a lump in your armpit you can't explain, and you just spent 8 hours getting badgered by the gossip-mongering Karen in your office, it feels good to indulge in some violence without real consequence. And as good as Grand Theft Auto is for giving you a much-needed break from reality, some days are worse. For when the auto shop wants $3,000 for the repair, your grandma just died, or that office gal pal of yours just slob-knobbed her way to the promotion that you worked hard to earn, there's Postal 2. The first Postal game, while having some comedic elements, is a bleak, distressing portrayal of a man truly losing his mind. I'll talk about that one another time. Especially for 1997, Postal was very controversial. Again, more on that another time, but in response, developer Running with Scissors didn't back down for the sequel, and instead of going further into the dreary atmosphere of the first game, they flipped the script and decided to make an extremely offensive, obnoxious, darkly humorous first-person shooter that gave players a bevy of tools to be as crass, brutal, and detestable as possible. The sequel was made with spite, and as a result, Postal 2 is a game with teeth. But it all starts with picking up milk.
Dare you enter the chamber of fire?
Postal 2 is not Titus Andronicus. It's not a tale rife with twisting plot lines, revenge, love, or any in-depth subject matter. You play as the Postal Dude, a guy living with his wife, simply referred to as the bitch, in a rundown trailer in Paradise, Arizona. The dude has a garbage life. His day starts with his AC unit going out, his wife nags him, his alternator is broken so he can't drive, and his dog, Champ, takes a leak on his boots. That's about it. Your objectives have nothing to do with rescuing the princess or saving the hostages. The dude has to pick up his paycheck, cash the check, and pick up milk from the store, in whatever order you see fit. You do these unremarkable objectives on Monday, then Tuesday, all the way up until Friday, the last day of the week. Along the way, you interact with all manner of religious kooks, child actors, overly zealous protesters, the developers themselves, Running with Scissors, and the children's mascot, Crotchy. You can probably figure out what Crotchy is supposed to be, so if you've never played Postal 2 but have watched the first few seasons of South Park, you'll understand the sense of humor this game is offering. Many offensive stereotypes are on display, and nobody gets preferential treatment. Postal 2 is a game about true equality, not the, opalescent modern-day definition of the word. The dude, much like myself, does not discriminate against any one particular person or group of people. We hate everyone equally. Make no mistake, the majority of the comedy in Postal 2 is not meant to be brilliant, elevated, or especially subversive. It's a whole lot of poo, pee, boob, and dick humor. On one hand, these concepts never really go out of style, and I have to admit I still laughed at some of it, but with that said, after 15 or so hours of Postal 2 and its expansions within a few days' time, I definitely had my fill. Be that as it may, there were plenty of times where I had a bona fide giggle or two, like with the Vendicure machine. You're required to urinate into this receptacle to get your gonorrhea pills, and the machine yells at you for splashing it. It's so perfectly stupid.
God, that is disgusting. Thanks.
There are also some genuinely interesting takes on some serious, dark, real-world subjects that I don't feel like Running with Scissors gets enough credit for. Late in the game, the dude travels to what is essentially just David Koresh's compound in Waco, Texas. They even put Koresh's real face in here. Oof. For those uncertain, this was a tragic encounter between a cult led by David Koresh and some 3-letter government agencies that ended in the deaths of several people, including many children in the compound, by fire. This is a grim subject to parody, and as absurd and satirical as Postal 2 is, Running with Scissors definitely straddled the line very carefully between funny and tasteless with this one. Now, Waco happened when I was maybe 4 years old. I don't have any personal attachment to it. It's just that this event and the one out at Ruby Ridge disgust me. There have been several legal battles where the debate was if Koresh and his cult started the fire, or if the ATF burned all those people alive. And this is where Postal 2's writing is quietly brilliant. Upon reaching the compound where the standoff is already in progress, you can see ATF agents wielding napalm launchers, and there are several lines about flammability by the officers. But they don't paint Koresh as a misunderstood hero either. They put a special health pipe on his bedside table. His bed, by the way, is also a giant heart, as Koresh was known for siring several children with many of his female followers. So, although the majority of the comedy in this game is based on micturating on people and fighting a giant set of balls inside of a toy store, Running with Scissors was pretty sagacious on where to draw this line. Solid work. The end of the game sees paradise turn into a literal apocalypse, complete with a hellish orange sky that rains cats. Civilians and law enforcement alike have all gone mad, and the dude just needs to find his way home. When he does, his wife nags him about forgetting to pick up her Rocky Road ice cream, and the game ends with the dude trying to put an end to his own miserable existence. He fails, by the way, but we'll talk about that later. Besides, we still have milk to pick up.
Did you remember my Rocky Road?
Doe!
Let me just get this out of the way. The basic FPS action in Postal 2 is kind of subpar, in that most of the weapons feel pretty weak, and many of the enemies can become super spongy. With that said, Postal 2 is one of my all-time favorite games to play, and it's for the weirdest reasons. Despite the zany nature of the gameplay, you can actually play out each objective as it's written. Here, I'm cashing my paycheck at the bank, and if you wish, you can stand in this line and wait your turn. The mundane nature of this task is perfectly personified in-game. The chatter of the bank teller, the groaning, fidgeting, and complaining of the other patrons, the ticking clock, and droll muzak.
$80.
Hey!
All right, let's change your account. All done.
That rocks!
You're welcome. I can help you over here, please.
What's up?
Hey.
And somewhere in your coat pocket, your hand is rubbing up against the stippling of your pistol. This is the ultimate strength of the gameplay in Postal 2. Even though the world of Paradise is filled with kooky NPCs, satirical advertisements, and products everywhere you look, it's very ordinary. It looks like places I've been to or lived in. I like that I can just go about my tasks plainly if I wish, but Running with Scissors is practically nudging you to give in to your intrusive thoughts. Then, if you do decide to play the game quote-unquote normally, they basically shove you into the lion's den eventually. This is the core gameplay loop of the entirety of Postal 2. The dude goes to a place to do a thing, at which point a group of wackos will come in to stir up mayhem, and you need to battle your way out. You can complete Postal 2 without a single fatality, and there's even an achievement for it, but it takes a fair bit of skill, speed, and some luck. As you go along each day of the week, the dude will acquire these enemy factions on his map, and when they spot you, they'll start blasting you on sight. Thankfully, you can use the police AI to help with this, as you can lead your enemies right to the cops, and they'll keep the loonies busy while you make good your escape. If you're the one causing trouble, and you often are, there'll be a police meter, sort of like GTA, but they don't send in the National Guard for you or anything like that. You can bribe cops, but it's not usually a problem since you can basically outrun them every time. If you are arrested, which I only did willingly to record this footage, you'll be locked up. You can escape by setting off the sprinkler system and take off running. You can find your confiscated items in the evidence closet on your way out of the door. If you look carefully, however, you can find the police uniform, one of 3 disguises in the game. You can instantly lose a max wanted level, but more importantly, you gain access to the otherwise locked armory to stock up on goodies. Also, the hostile factions won't recognize you out in town. Your disguises reset when you end the weekday, but it's a lot of fun in the meantime. The base game weapons are pretty simple. The dude's handgun is usually incorrectly called a 50 cal, but it's more likely a 44. Either way, it's dependable. The dude's shotgun is an 870 with the stock folded up. He uses the classic Colt M16 H-bar, M26 fragmentation grenades, the Winchester 1887 a la Arnold in T2, and a few other heavy weapons like the fictional napalm launcher. The base game weapons are pretty solid, but really, Postal 2 is inferior when attempting to be a straight-up FPS. I made this point already, and it's not outright bad, it's just not a patch on, say, Soldier of Fortune, which had already been out for 3 years at this point. But really, few people remember Postal 2 for the weapons, it's all about the other tools at your disposal. I will never forget the first time I played Postal 2 at my buddy Chris's house. I used to love going to Chris's house because his dad was on Valium to escape his mom, and his mom was a religious kook that was always drunk. It was great. When I played Postal 2, it was shocking to remove someone's head with a shovel and kick it around with a big boot like Duke Nukem. It was darkly hilarious to light the marching band on fire with the gas cannon match. But when he told me to press E on the cat in my inventory with my shotgun equipped, how do you put this into words? So, you use the posterior aspect of the feline to suppress the sound of your weapon. That's a dance with Big Brother right there. Naturally, this was controversial with certain animal rights groups and so forth, but for my money, this is so over the top and absurd that how can you take it seriously? And I'm super sensitive about animals, like being a veterinarian would be too sad for me, but this is so intentionally stupid and funny, you have to laugh. And it's, fake. But cats have other uses too. I discovered this one through sheer curiosity. I was getting chased by a pack of junkyard dogs. I was scrolling to my dog treats to try and calm them down when I passed my stash of cats. On a whim, I thought, alright, well I dropped a cat from my inventory and sure enough, the dogs broke off to chase the cat instead of me. There are a few very clever, untaught gameplay mechanics that were really fun to discover. Some of them are downright treacherous. So, if you drop a donut near a cop, they'll go over to pick it up. The stereotype, right? But if you drop your donut on the ground and moisten it with your own yellow liquid and then drop it near a cop, well... Yeah, urine. This is another thing I remember being shocked by when I played the game for the first time as a young lad. I simply couldn't believe that this was a mechanic in a video game. And the way people react to your fly being open out in public, not to mention when you give them a drink, is still hilarious and devilishly clever on the part of running with scissors. Like using a cat for a suppressor, it's just so over the top and crude that I kinda have to laugh at the countries that banned this game for being lewd. Like, did you mind the ability to equip a weapon and go off on helpless civilians in a convenience store? But emptying your bladder is just way too much. Alright. Oh, and your stream isn't just for being disgusting, it has a gameplay function as well. If you're on fire, unzip, aim up, and douse the flames with your own water. Thanks, Tinkle. Postal Dude can use other consumables as well, including his special health pipe, which brings your HP to 125. But as a result, you become addicted and have withdrawal symptoms. If you don't take another hit in time, you'll lose 20 HP when he crashes. But if you're more into downers, the dude can take a puff of catnip. This gives you a good long period of bullet time, which is actually super helpful and can make some fights a breeze. You can also use it to lure cats. And you can use the money you find too. In addition to objectives like buying milk, you can purchase more catnip, food for health, spare cats, yes, really, gasoline, more health pipes, and bass sniffers. The bass sniffer, which could help a fisherman locate fish, also helps the dude find things that smell like fish. No, I'm just kidding. It's just a radar. Red fish means a hostile enemy, and you can upgrade it. But you believed me for a second, didn't you? However, not everything is Elysian in paradise. Although I really love the aforementioned ordinary objectives juxtaposed against the outrageous behavior of the NPCs, sometimes objectives and their results are just plain boring. Like picking up a Christmas tree from the woods and getting attacked by rednecks for no reason. There are also some dull activities done for a quick joke that kinda just pad out the game's length.
And all.
Well, I hope you voted today. Your choices will affect the future.
Yeah, right. Several scenarios see the dude battling out of a structure, be it a burning library or a collapsing napalm factory. This usually involves a wee bit of platforming, but it's nothing too complex. The big negative about Postal 2's gameplay is the jank. Now, when I played the game 20 years ago with my buddy Chris, Postal 2 ran much, much worse. A litany of bugs, game crashes, and frame dips. Thanks to running with scissors supporting their game over the years, thank you by the way, Postal 2 runs a whole lot better than it used to, but it still has its issues. I got the occasional slowdown with too much fire on screen and a crash to desktop, but thankfully it only happened once. Oftentimes the janky nature of the game is actually kind of part of its charm, and stuff like Gary Coleman sliding menacingly on one knee had me laughing out loud. However, sometimes it can actually disrupt your objectives. The AI pathfinding kinda took a crap here, and the confessional queue gets jammed up, which prevented me from confessing my sins. I had to reload the checkpoint and start over. It wasn't a massive problem, but don't go into this game expecting super high levels of polish. Or graphical fidelity for that matter.
Repeat it after me, bitch. I come in the name of Jesus by the power of the Holy Spirit.
So, suffice it to say, the graphics aren't holding up well. Postal 2's engine is a strange amalgamation. The game is running on kind of a custom combination of the first Unreal Engine with elements of Unreal Engine 2 sort of duct taped onto it, or perhaps even the other way around. Running with scissors referred to it as Unreal Engine 1.5. Either way, Postal 2 from the jump has always just kind of looked like ass. Character models, as you can see, aren't exactly the peak of artistic excellence, and their animations are notoriously rigid and robotic, and I had already detailed the jank earlier, but despite the rough look of the game, especially in today's world of incredible visual caliber, Postal 2 at least nails what it was aiming for. That is to say, a stinging, cynical satire of modern American life. It's nothing you haven't seen being lampooned before. I mean, literally every Grand Theft Auto has this kind of commentary baked into it, but it's still fun. Areas of the map are broken up into loading zones, which are noted by signs that say, loading zone. I love little details like this. Running with scissors just kind of saying, yeah, what do you want, man? It's gotta load. With a modern rig, these load times are lightning quick, but anyone that played Postal 2 back in the day would remember this with less fondness. But at least you have plenty of signs around to denote where you're headed, and the dude has a handy Silent Hill-esque map to show where your objectives are located. It can be a little cumbersome to figure out which direction you're headed in, and pulling up the map frequently can become tiresome. An on-screen minimap would have been the bee's knees, but I never got lost or stuck, so I suppose I can't complain too much. Weapon models are nicely detailed. The classic carry handle M16A2 with that polymer handguard is always awesome. I wouldn't say that the Postal Dude's design is necessarily iconic in the way that Doom Guy or Master Chief is, but for the fans of the series, we all know and love the psychotic ginger by sight. And hey, if nothing else, Postal 2 has Gary Coleman dressed up like Tony Montana. So,
Go back to the donut convention. I ain't going nowhere.
Never mind the wisecracks, Ventura.
audio is another mixed bag. The voice acting for NPCs is obviously intentionally goofy and over the top, but you'll still hear plenty of Oblivion conversations as you stroll by. No, I'm not doing the bit with the Jeremy Soule music because it's played out. But to me, the Postal Dude's voice, provided by Rick Hunter, is at least as memorable as Duke Nukem or Serious Sam. That sarcastic, baritone delivery. I always love hearing the dude spout incredibly coarse, nihilistic lines as you carry out your intrusive thoughts. The quips and reactions are just enough to be entertaining, but not constant and overwhelming so as to become grating. And some of the lines are downright classics.
This can't be good for me, but I feel great.
It kinda reminds me of my boy Tommy from Prey, 2006 Prey. The score, composed by Christian Sawyer, is perfect for this game. I always thought this was just generic, royalty-free music from many Kmarts back in the day, but nope. Christian composed this stuff, and it fits the aforementioned sarcastic look at modern American life like a glove. Standing in line at the store with those droning tunes boring into your skull while you debate going nuts is just perfect. I also remember playing the Postal 2 demo back in the day, and at the end, they used the song Ahem by the band Fate. I always liked that song. Anyway, it's fun to go back and listen to the dark and, quite frankly, unsettling music from the first Postal, and then listen to the goofy tunes from the sequel. It highlights the silly, comedic spirit that the team was converting over to, one that has been with the series since. And as much as I love Postal 1 for what it is, this is, in my opinion, what the series should be tonally. Sound effects are also on point. From the thick zipper to the heavy thunk of the shovel smashing someone upside the head, the satisfying pulpy thwack of rounds hitting targets, onto the grotesque sound of your yellow liquid treat splashing someone in the mouth, only for the bubbling, gurgling eruption of their vomit to follow soon thereafter. I gave that line way too much thought.
Excellent.
So, a few years after Postal 2 initially launched, Running with Scissors added a few expansion packs. The first one, Share the Pain, was the multiplayer expansion. I never played it, so I don't really have an opinion to share. How about you? Was it any good? It seems like it'd be fun to pee on everyone, but I don't know. The single-player expansion is titled Apocalypse Weekend. I did play this one, and oh boy. So picking up from where the base game left off, the expansion takes place on Saturday and Sunday. Postal Dude wakes up in the hospital after the failed attempt to pop himself. The expansion starts promisingly enough. There's a strange sort of prologue mission that reminds me of a vulgar version of Max Payne 2's hospital sequence. The dude is asked to donate some of his white, man juice to make a quick $1, and the visual of this greasy bucket in a closet surrounded by stimulation is pretty funny and gross. Along the way, dude experiences the resulting effects of his self-inflicted head trauma. He sees demonic little Gary Colemans that throw scissors and grenades at him. This is almost like the dude's version of Silent Hill, although that's giving Apocalypse Weekend way too much credit. So the opening hospital scene is funny and charming for about 5 minutes before it becomes a tedious trek through the hospital, stopping to battle a bunch of tornado cats and Grenadier Garys. And this is basically Apocalypse Weekend in a nutshell. It's not a free roam map like the base game, but rather a series of linear levels that the dude is funneled through, stopping to do tedious, boring objectives and fighting tired enemies like zombies and CTE Garys. The zombies are born of a joke that mad cow disease is being spread throughout paradise after receiving beef from England. This was relevant at the time, to be fair, but it's completely out of date now, and it wasn't funny at the time either. The twist is, they also have Tourette's. It's not that the base game was exactly subtle with its humor, but this is like a comedy randomizer of wacky concepts, and it's just boring. The objectives this time are a lot more traditional, action-packed video game type stuff, and they are much worse for it. You get to do thrilling things like smash 21 cows over the head.
With a sledge. See, that was better. They died better that way.
Or kill 50 zombies with Vince Desi, or the super annoying mission where you cut down elephants with a scythe, which was really lame. It's all appropriately absurd, and I tried to love it. I really tried to love it, because I love Postal. But for some reason, the base game's loop of mundane activities leading into combat with whack jobs was a lot more enjoyable to me. It could have been amusing to smash 10 cows or something, but 21? It's just pure padding. The whack jobs do still show up. Apocalypse Weekend has what's basically a parody of PETA, but it's kind of just hackneyed low-hanging fruit. Like, we all know these people are basically insane. It's not that interesting. But it's not all terrible. One of the more interesting missions in the expansion is where Vince Desi hires the Postal Dude to storm the head office at Bullfish Interactive to take back the gold master disc of Postal 2. This is a parody, and really more of a torching, of Running with Scissors' former publisher, Whiptail Interactive, and their CEO at the time, Fred Heslop, changed to Fraud Hogslop. Allegedly, this was due to Whiptail breaching a contract with Running with Scissors after Postal 2 was launched, so in response, RWS made an entire level where the Postal Dude brutally waxes Fraud Hogslop and takes back the master disc of Postal 2. I guess the split wasn't amicable. This is the Postal 2 that I love, made with spite and a vindictive streak. Unfortunately, the head trauma and TBI Garys come back, and the boss fight against Fraud Hogslop is a battle against heat-seeking rockets, something I absolutely hate in all of Postal 2. I know you can kick them back, but it's still irritating. The dude has to venture into an Al-Qaeda training camp to procure explosives. You run through blasting wave after wave of the exact same character model. Enemies are as spongy and unresponsive as they were in the base game. Once you're done, you have to run back through the entire level, except at nighttime. Ooh. Then you get captured and put in a military prison. You escape, and then, guess what? You battle through wave after wave of the exact same character model, again. Except this time, the US troops are way spongier than the man-jammy fellas, and battling through these guys is absolutely dreadful. The dude makes it his mission to grab a nuclear warhead from deep inside the base, which he'll use to eradicate the Bullfish headquarters once and for all. Then, you're not going to see this coming, you once again backtrack through the entire level, only this time with zombies.
What the hell are we doing here, Harry?
Thanks to his brain damage, the dude ends up in hell, where you do some lame platforming for a bit before fighting even more Grenadier Garys. Look man, I love Different Strokes. That was an era of television that tried to bring people together and teach them good values. But I'm not a fan of these little demon Arnold Jacksons lobbing bombs at me. Sorry. God damn it. But you know something? They added a new dismemberment system to the game, and while it doesn't make the gunplay any better, it definitely makes bladed weapons a quality option. Unlike most video games where edged weapons hit people like heavy plastic toys, cough, Skyrim, cough, Apocalypse Weekend will have you slicing through anything in your path. This is probably my favorite legitimate upgrade that this expansion brought to the Postal formula, and it wouldn't surprise me if Turtle Rock found inspiration for Left 4 Dead with this. So, the dude plants a warhead in the offices of Bullfish Interactive. Some things happen, and eventually you fight the final boss of the game, Mad Cow Mike J, a large cow-man-demon combination with the likeness and voice of Mike Jarrett Schachter, the co-owner of Running with Scissors. It's a big arena battle where Mike J stomps around and throws explosive stuff at you. Zombies creep around to add to the illusion of challenge. You shoot these little balls, and I do mean balls, floating around his head. His shield will go down and then you'll damage him until the balls return. Rinse, repeat. You know, it's only fitting that an extremely boring expansion pack ends with an equally boring final boss. He has 5,000 HP. So, rocket after rocket, popping ball after ball, the big bad falls and we see the dude ride out of paradise with his fur buddy, Champ, as the nuke goes off behind them. And for 11 long years, this was the last the world had seen of the Postal Dude. That is, until a full-fledged DLC was released titled Paradise Lost. Yes, there was Postal 3, however that game was a disaster and nearly buried the franchise forever. In a brilliant move, instead of selling people another new, full-priced Postal game to fans still weary after Postal 3, Running with Scissors released Paradise Lost as DLC for Postal 2, a game that every fan would already have owned for many years at this point. This was not only smart as a sort of peace offering for the fans, but it was able to bring in some cash flow to help finance a proper sequel, which was released as Postal 4 No Regrets in April of 22. And how was Paradise Lost, you might ask? Well, honestly, this video is long enough, so I'll tell you another time. Postal 2 is, without a doubt, the most blatantly offensive game that I've ever played. Yeah, I know there are much worse unofficial games and mods, like Moon. If you know, you know. But as far as games that once sat on the shelves of a store, very few come close to the exploits of the Postal Dude's week in paradise. On a technical and gameplay level, Postal 2 can't really stand next to games of its time, like Medal of Honor Frontline or Timesplitters 2. Despite what I just said, I still love playing Postal 2 immensely. It's the perfect way to blow off steam after a crappy day. And really, on a deeper level, it does an excellent job of portraying the increasingly narcissistic, panicked, violent, and confused microwave society that we live in. And to think, it's only gotten much worse. More interesting to note was the controversy following the game's release. Much like the Manhunt series would go on to do, Postal 2 ruffled some feathers across the globe. Selling or owning the game in New Zealand can land you in prison for up to 10 years, and you'll owe a fine of $50,000. How funny is that? You get shacked up with murderers and worse for owning a video game where you can pee on donuts. Then, when you do your stretch, you have to give the politicians that ruined your life $50,000 for the privilege. Oh, gangsters in suits, baby. Gangsters in suits.
Fuck you.
I can help you over here, please.
Hello.
Hi.
I'd like to make a deposit.
And how much did you need to deposit?
$80.
Hey!